If you're tired of the negativity about Destiny lately, I promise you there's some light at the end of this tunnel. It's behind a season's worth of beaver codes and bugs, as well as a lack of raids, dungeons, and secret missions making me absolutely miserable lately, a toxicity that won't go away until probably the next raid, dungeon, or secret mission. But after that, there is a light. Because the secret is, I get it. I agree with it. I invite it. But, with that said, here are my 7 reasons why weapon retirement is flawed. There's a lot of talking, okay. To clarify for those who don't know, weapon retirement is the system they are installing into Destiny effectively starting Season 12. Any gear that's Season 8 or older at release will no longer be able to infuse up to the new light level cap, and afterwards gear will have a lifespan of only 1 year. For example, at the start of Season 13, Season 9 will also suffer the same fate. There are some nuances, what's happening with Garden and Salvation and Last Wish for example, but the explained goal of this change is to invite creativity and experimentation into endgame builds while providing the space for Bungie to create new and powerful loot without the decline of sandbox quality through power creep. They do not want Recluse to dominate the next aspirational challenge. They want to be able to print more Recluses without needing them to be strictly better than the old Recluse. So, what are the problems I have with it? Number 1, sandbox adjustments are actually far too slow with respect to sunsetting. In the most recent TWAB, they mentioned that they're eyeing Season 12 to maybe improve the range on 110 hand cannons. This would give them an identity distinct from the other archetypes. However, Season 12 would be after most current 110 hand cannons retire, excluding True Prophecy. This is including Loud Lullaby, the 110 hand cannon introduced along with the hand cannon nerf that further destroyed the viability of 110s. Loud Lullaby, when it's sunset at the beginning of Season 12, will have lived its entire life being useless, which means if you spent the time farming useful Loud Lullaby rolls in the hopes it might one day become endgame viable, you literally wasted your time. You have just learned to never farm for a potential future and only ever commit to what's proven in current, destroying creativity beyond the current proven meta. 2. Weapon retirement also further exacerbates the problem of the artifact and seasonal champion mods. In the most recent TWAB, they isolate bows as being underused in challenging content. There are a few reasons for this, especially in encounters defined by tight hallways and numerous adds, but also, I used a bow often during Season 8 when I could equip unstoppable rounds to them. The only reason I used a scout Season 9 was because I could equip unstoppable rounds to them then. And now, the main reason I use a primary hand cannon is because I can equip unstoppable rounds to them now. If the only reason I use certain primary weapons is because of champions, understanding that champions exist only in the activities that weapon retirement affects, and weapon retirement is specifically about making me change my loadouts for the activities I find meaningful, doesn't this mean weapons have even less than a full year of value? For example, if scout rifles specifically do not receive champion mods during Season 11, Randy's throwing knife will have been endgame viable for 3 months. If they do, 6 months is still half of what the promised viability will be. Number 3, armor retirement exacerbates the problem of upgrade materials and armor time investment. I have spent every season after catching up on the seasonal content playing Prestige Leviathan weekly grinding for armor. It's my favorite aesthetic, the most reliable source of raid armor drops, and can equip hive mods. I only recently have replaced my helmet and boots with Prestige Leviathan armor, improving my overall stat spread. The aesthetic for armor only will be solved with transmog, something I enjoy, but the time invested and reliability of the activity is still being robbed. I both lose my current armor I use for most content, as well as the source it came from for reliably high rolls. But most frustratingly, I don't use this armor set for pinnacle activities such as Grandmaster Nightfalls and Trials. I use my Warmind Cell build for Grandmasters and my Powerful Friends build for Trials. I use this armor set explicitly to farm Master Nightfalls for the current seat to build other sets, as well as explore new PvE environments and challenges since I understand this build's strengths and weaknesses the most. This is my farming loadout that I use to help educate myself and invest into other builds that are better suited for pinnacle challenges. Now, I have to rebuild my farming loadout in order to farm the Masterwork currency in order to rebuild my farming loadout. Somehow finding the time and getting lucky finding decent rolls in armor somewhere, and also, somehow, along the way, rebuilding my Warlocks, Titans, and Hunters PvP sets every other season. I will endlessly play catch up with myself in order to play my way. The only alternative is to decide that this doesn't matter, that there is no need for good stats in masterworked armor. Number 4, gear retirement also exacerbates the discrepancy between invested players and their casual friends. Presumably, players like Drewski, Kamikate, Stato, and Glad will all have the time to burn into reinvesting into new gear every season. This last year, I have also had the time more or less to burn into Destiny. Players who don't find they have the luxury of time as content creators, or of players like me, will be left behind in the dust. Casual players who are wise to all the nuances of Armor 2.0 back in Season 8 only this season got enough Ascendant Shards to masterwork a full set, assuming they never wasted any materials. Any player that only recently finished their PvE armor set, who only had enough time to play to reach this point after 3 seasons, will probably be forced to do only Nightfalls next season if they want to make the most out of their investment before it expires. Any player who only has one masterworked armor set is at risk of having their entire investment be completely invalidated, pressuring them to have to play more than they can only to re-earn the right to use what they already spent so long to acquire. If, say, a casual player has been mostly playing the game to be with his hardcore friend and they have done their best these last 3 seasons to min-max the limited time they have to play together to help bring the casual friend up to aspirational power in both weapons and armor, and that casual friend is still not ready for Grandmaster Nightfalls 2 weeks before the season ends with either weapons or armor, understanding that most of their good armor comes from sources that expire this September, those 2 friends should give up on Destiny. They should find a different game to play together where the hardcore friend can invest in mastery, invest in ways to help casual players improve and grow their collections and skill, without the game rushing and disrespecting the time of the casual player by forcing him to be miserably, endlessly behind. At best, the casual friend focuses on only exotics and the crazy stats from the season pass armor that continues to be my highest rolled set of armor in the game despite endless hours of raids. A focus that invalidates any life armor retirement is supposed to breathe into the gear. Casual players with the time they have should ignore legendary gear and focus only on exotics, using the best scraps they have to fill the gaps. Which means number 5. Exotics aren't safe from gear retirement, as far as forcibly enforcing variety into the ways we play. My farming build that I will have to rebuild endlessly includes Ariana's Vow. Ariana's Vow also finds her way into some of my Grandmaster builds due to her reliability and raw power, as well as her intrinsic anti-barrier perk. This gun is the centerpiece of all the ways I play Destiny right now, a fact weapon retirement does nothing to address. There are 3 options currently on the table to address this fact. 1, they could nerf it by removing the anti-barrier quality, rob the weapon of half its identity. 2, they could nerf it by downgrading it to a primary weapon, rob the weapon of half its identity. Or 3, they could buff other exotics by distributing champion mods to them, making them viable endgame alternatives. Everybody wants that last one, but everybody has wanted it since Shadowkeep launched, right? The obvious solution is to give all exotic primaries champion mods, distinguishing Ariana's and Divinity as the only special champion weapons. But maybe there's something we're all missing that's stopping Bungie from doing any of our personal obvious solutions. So that leaves a nerf it. Or 4th, they could eventually retire it. This is something that Say No to Rage advocates for, because he would rather have a sunset sleeper than a nerfed sleeper. But exotics are also the only thing that both defines my build and survives this MMO treadmill design. In MMO propers, there are massive skill trees and abilities and laundry lists of perks that it doesn't matter what my bow is, it's me shooting the lightning. The stats on the bow are just that, stats. In Destiny, I'm not dealing with enemies with my lightning. I'm not engaged in encounters with my magic. The whole game focuses on the weapons. The weapons are more than just stats. Even if they distribute champion mods to other exotics, that won't stop me from settling into this one playstyle. Ariana's is reliable, powerful, and has a strong affinity to endgame PvE. That means they will fail to enforce variety on me so long as I have this comfort knowing this part of the way I play remains intact. Since the whole goal of weapon retirement is to enforce variety, exotics aren't safe. Number 6. If my weapon is valuable because of the endgame, removing them from the endgame experience removes their value. When they do eventually retire Ariana's Vow, this still destroys the weapon's identity. Champions exist for endgame activities, and Ariana's Vow exists for champions. But this extends to legendary weapons as well, such as Wendigo GO3 or personally my Austrainer. Wendigo is a weapon whose identity is reliability, power, and affinity for endgame PvE. What makes it good in Grandmaster Nightfalls isn't the damage, but how blinding grenades creates escape paths. Is this a weapon that you need for regular strikes? Is this a weapon that would even stand out? Regular strikes topple to the strength of a swift breeze, which are supposed to make them great to crazy loadouts and builds. Why would I need to make an escape path in them? The Sunshot Warmind build, something I would never use in Grandmaster Nightfalls, comes to mind. Why would I instead do what's simply safe and reliable? Austrainer is a weapon whose identity is reliability and affinity to my own personal playstyle. I don't use it in Grandmaster Nightfalls, but with Demolitionists, it fits my farming loadout's goals and aesthetics. Is this a weapon that I would need for regular strikes? Is this a weapon that would even stand out? Regular strikes usually run on some ability modifier, making perks like Demolitionist redundant, asking instead to synergize more directly with them. The Solar Warmind build, something I would never use in Grandmaster Nightfalls, comes to mind. Why would I instead do what's simply safe and reliable? This problem doesn't affect PvE and PvP equally. The Crucible has their own critiques a la weapon balance, but at least Revoker will still have a home in the survival playlist. Survival is a skill-based PvP activity that necessitates power and execution, and if your favorite weapon is Revoker, you will have an aspirational goal to chase with it, letting you play your way. What is the point to keeping Wendigo GO3 or my Austrainer when every potential home is so casual and disconnected from what I value out of my time? Even Gambit will punish me if I use them there, making it easier for the invader to kill me. Which all leads to number 7, the meaninglessness of the game. The underlying issue to every single one of these problems is the meaninglessness of activities that aren't endgame or Crucible. Crucible has a survival playlist to provide an avenue of skill and aspirational challenges and rewards to contextualize Revoker, but even Crucible otherwise will always be a playground of at least the aesthetic of skill for your favorite PvP weapons. Felwinter's Lie will always be the best shotgun in normal Crucible, even after it rotates out of Trials. But there is no similar context in PvE for your favorite PvE endgame weapons. There is no home for retired gear that do not simply feed more retired gear. Again, Wendigo GO3 is important because of how it blinds enemies in challenging PvE encounters. The only meaningful and challenging PvE encounters to play every season are Master and now Grandmaster Nightfalls in order to farm currency. There are no meaningful PvE encounters that aren't challenging, and there are no challenging PvE encounters that aren't gatekept by retirement. Strikes are pointless as far as challenge is concerned, and do not offer a reward loop that eventually feeds me back to aspirational challenges. Prestige Leviathan did, with armor. Master Nightfalls did, with enhancement materials. Patrols have always been a joke that do less than strikes in offering the tools I need to experiment and overcome aspirational challenges. Whereas Prestige Leviathan did, with armor, and Master Nightfalls did, with enhancement materials. And then Gambit not only fails in providing an endgame feed or loop anywhere, which even Crucible kinda manages right now with enhancement cores and a Valor reset, but will punish me via overleveled invaders for even considering it as a home for old weapons. I can't even be confident that Piv Heresy won't suddenly no longer reward a masterworked armor piece for dismantle fodder, as that masterworked reward was what distinguished it from Shattered Throne, and Years 4's dungeon is on the horizon. This forces me into the problem of point 3, constantly playing catch up with myself, because the only space that's worth playing is the endgame. If the thing I want to do is invest my time into farming resources and currency, I will always only have an endgame loadout because nowhere else matters. Now that I baited you all the way to the end with negativity, I'd like to remind you that I get it. There should be some rotation style rule set a la Magic the Gathering's standard format that enforces and encourages diversity and experimentation every season. I do not want Izanagi's Burden, Recluse, and Wendigo GL3 to wreck every aspirational challenge as they come out forever. I do not want Trials to be decimated by Mountaintop, Revoker, and Felwinter's Lie for the next 20 years. I want to watch the metagame evolve, even if it's in a curated way, because that will encourage the community to care about research more than simply answering the question, is it better than yesterday's wares? I get it. I agree with it. I invite it. However, let's be clear about what we're discussing here. Trials of Osiris, Grandmaster Nightfalls, contest raids, seasonal aspirational challenges, and so on. To really isolate how aggressive sunsetting is with how it's written on paper. Who really cares that there are players who are clearing legendary lost sectors with Recluse? Who really cares that there are players who are clearing rounds of Gambit today with Recluse? Who really cares that there are players who are clearing Garden of Salvation today with Recluse? Who really cares that there are players who are clearing Pit of Heresy today with Recluse? And to zoom back into how sunsetting is affecting me personally, who really cares that I play Master Nightfalls to farm enhancement materials with my Prestige Leviathan gear? If I'm being honest, that's the part that makes me the most upset on a personal level. I've been playing Prestige Leviathan every week since Shadowkeep, searching for a strong high armor set with 80 discipline. That lets me use 2 discipline mods for max discipline, then enough space for minor, major, and boss resist. Prestige Leviathan is the only reliable source of raid armor drops otherwise, and the aesthetic is on point. A good fit, as the Instagram lady in our clan would say. I've been grinding this set every week so that I can grind Master Nightfalls at peak efficiency. I want to grind Master Nightfalls because I want to farm the Ascendant Shards in order to masterwork more builds. This includes my Grandmaster Nightfall set and my Trials of Osiris set. I've only just masterworked my Titans PvP set. And to make certain I say this somewhere, if I have to rebuild my Grandmaster Nightfall set every other season, or my Trials of Osiris set every other season, or my other characters' PvP sets every other season, I get it. Rotate the metas and the mods, cool, I'm fine with that, I'll happily do it. I am, however, incredibly unhappy that my last year of play is going down the drain, because if I want to be able to continue playing Master Nightfalls to masterwork armor pieces I'll need to otherwise find the time to farm for, I'll need to make sure every other season that includes setting aside time to rebuild my Master Nightfall set. That includes setting aside time rebuilding my 80 discipline set every other season. Which means I will be playing towards compromised goals. I will not go for those high stat builds over long grinds, I'll just settle for whatever gets me 80 discipline first. I will make absolute certain I waste no time fine-tuning anything, because not only is my last year of effort going down the drain, but also all the Ascendant Shards and Enhancement Prisms I've burned across all my armor, not just the one set. And to reset the zoom, one more time, to how sunsetting is affecting me, personally. Who really cares that I play Master Nightfalls to farm enhancement materials with my Prestige Leviathan gear? I do not want to waste your time talking analogies with other games. Somebody will comment down below, but this isn't WoW, or WoW did this, so suck it up, Buttercup. And I honestly don't give a frick about how other games do it. I play Destiny for Destiny. I will, however, point to Magic the Gathering, because Luke Smith pointed to Magic the Gathering in his original director's cut, warning us about sunsetting. He specifically mentioned how Destiny now is sort of like what Magic would be like if you could use all your cards from every set forever. If you know Magic, you would know that's the vintage format. He also mentioned how their goal is to make sure we value our collecting and collections while encouraging us to look forward towards future metagames as distinct eras. If you know Magic, you would know that that's the standard format. When he said all that, I was actually sold on sunsetting. At first. I love Magic the Gathering. I used to be a hardcore standard grinder locally until I had to suddenly move. Magic the Gathering was my hobby before Destiny was my hobby. Let me say again that I get it. There is a reason he brought up Magic and not Yu-Gi-Oh! Rotation and formats are good. But there are no formats in Destiny, and there is no indication that there are any plans for formats in the future besides standard. If you know card games, you would know that that's Pokemon. And besides that Charizard you're thinking of right now, Pokemon isn't known for its value. If you remember from earlier, I said that Crucible has a survival playlist to provide an avenue of skill and aspirational rewards and challenges to contextualize Revoker. It should be a better playlist activity. I personally believe that every other win in the survival playlist should reward Platinum Master Nightfall rewards, which would give the Crucible a natural gameplay loop that helps players masterwork their gear playing their way, while encouraging Trials to offer more unique rewards as part of its aspirational endgame challenge. But right now, it still offers something. That's, in a manner of speaking, a format like Magic. In Magic, I own a very expensive legacy format deck called Death and Taxes. It's a massive multi-year investment. I could take that deck and go to legacy tournaments and play my way with my favorite cards. That's already worth value for the activity alone. But also, if I win the tournament, I'll earn in-store prizes that I can use to invest further in either Legacy, or, if I choose, the Standard format. I can use my massive multi-year investment to help refuel my seasonal investment. And if I don't refuel my seasonal investment with the rewards and instead choose to invest deeper into Legacy, well, me having a satisfying gameplay loop isn't at the expense of the seasonal model, is it? Whether or not so-and-so vendors drop Legacy, the Legacy format will always have a competitive following. What I want to see, in order to quell my own personal fears about sunsetting turning Destiny more into the Pokemon TCG than Magic the Gathering, are specific meaningful lanes of play set aside for Legacy content where your gear's light level does not matter because the light level is capped. Master Nightfalls, Survival, and Gambit Prime should all be agnostic of light level and reward Master Nightfall level rewards. I want to be able to farm Master Nightfalls with my Hive armor set in order to earn materials to refuel my seasonal grind. I want to be able to farm Master Nightfalls with my Warmind armor set a year from now and still earn materials to refuel my seasonal grind. I want to be able to grind Survival with my most practiced PvP builds and earn materials to refuel my seasonal grind. I want to be able to play Gambit and not get punished for using Austrian. Why is this even a feature? I want to be able to grind Gambit Prime with my favorite PvE weapons and earn materials to refuel my seasonal grind. I would prefer this go even further. I personally do not see a problem with people clearing Garden of Salvation with Recluse today, for example. Titles and adept level rewards should be locked behind seasonal meta aspirational challenges. But like how I expect Grandmaster Nightfalls to be more rewarding than Master Nightfalls, I expect contest modifier raids to be more rewarding than regular raids. If the coolest things were behind the contest modifier, and the contest modifier also enforces metagames, who cares? Players go into regular mode with Recluse. But at a minimum, I want these three lanes of play to be agnostic of light level and reward the upgrade materials that prepare myself for aspirational challenges. It won't matter if sandbox adjustments are too slow if eventually I'll be able to have that rewarding gameplay loop with new guns. It won't matter if artifact mods are too restrictive because for Master Nightfalls I'll always be able to dig up my favorite weapons of relevant archetypes from yesteryear. It won't matter that armor gets retired because I'll always have a meaningful home for it. That home will always be a home I can use to help my casual friends prepare for seasonal content instead of them getting helplessly left behind. A home that will always accept Ariana's Vow and other exotics even if eventually sunsetting comes for them. A home that, in accepting all gear, will always let gear whose identity revolve around the endgame continue to have a purpose. A home that has meaning. I can't comment about whether or not this is on the table for Bungie. I believe that if it were, that they would have said something by now in one of their endless twabs about all the crazy changes coming in the future. Or it is on the table, but in a way so massive that they'd rather slam jam us all of it when the hype season starts. Things could be great tomorrow. But things have been terrible lately. It makes sense to get the bad news out of the way now, but forgive me for feeling that news lately has only been bad. I can only hope that if I keep commenting the feedback in as many places as I can, that maybe somebody somewhere will read it. I can be toxic even if I don't want to be. I could be long-winded even if I try as hard as I can for brevity. I might never get the acknowledgement from Bungie if they ever do hear my concerns. But please, as far as all my concerns go, do this one thing right with however you go about evolving Destiny. I agree there should be a standard format, but also make a legacy format. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating as well as a share is appreciated. Follow me on Twitter to get in touch with me, and follow me on Twitch and YouTube to support me. Again, thank you.